And he mocked my accent until I became his boss. The first time Marcus Hartwell mimicked my accent, I was standing in line at the campus coffee shop, fumbling with unfamiliar American coins, while the barista waited with barely concealed impatience. I had been in Boston for exactly 3 weeks, fresh off the plane from Mumbai with dreams bigger than my bank account and an English accent that carried the musical cadence of my homeland. Vone medium coffee, please. I had said, my pronunciation still adjusting to the American W sound that seemed to slip away from my tongue like water through fingers. That's when I heard it, a perfect, exaggerated mimicry from behind me. Vone medium coffee, please, came the mocking voice, followed by snickers from his companions. Maybe try speaking English next time, buddy. I turned around to see him, tall, blonde, wearing a Harvard Business School sweatshirt, like armor, surrounded by a cluster of equally privileged-looking students. His blue eyes sparkled with cruel amusement as he looked me up and down, taking in my second-hand clothes and worn backpack. I'm speaking English, I replied quietly, my cheeks burning with embarrassment. I could have fooled me, Marcus said, his grin widening. Maybe take some pronunciation classes before you try to play with the big boys in business school. His friends erupted in laughter, and I felt something shrivel inside my chest. I grabbed my coffee and left without another word, but his laughter followed me like shadows. That was my introduction to Marcus Hartwell, heir to Hartwell Industries, a family empire built on manufacturing and real estate. While I was counting every dollar to afford textbooks, he was complaining about his measly monthly allowance of $5,000. While I worked 3 part-time jobs to pay for my MBA, he treated classes like an expensive social club. But what Marcus didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I hadn't come this far to be defeated by someone who confused privilege with intelligence. My name is Arjun Patel, and I had earned my place at Harvard Business School through sheer determination and academic excellence. Back in Mumbai, I had graduated top of my engineering class, worked for 2 years at a tech startup, and saved every rupee to chase my American dream. My accent wasn't a flaw, it was evidence of my journey, a testament to the barriers I had already crossed. The mocking didn't stop with that first encounter. Marcus seemed to take particular pleasure in highlighting my differences. During group presentations, he would pause dramatically whenever I spoke, pretending to strain to understand. In case study discussions, he would rephrase my comments with exaggerated politeness. What I think Arjun is trying to say is, followed by his own interpretation that inevitably garnered more attention than my original insight. The worst incident happened during our international business class. Professor Chen had asked us to discuss market entry strategies for emerging economies, and I was in my element. I spoke passionately about the nuances of doing business in India, drawing from real experience rather than textbook theory. The key is understanding that trust building in Indian business culture requires time and relationship investment, I explained. You cannot simply impose Western models. Sorry, Professor. Marcus interrupted, hand raised in mock confusion. Could you ask Arjun to repeat that I'm having trouble with the accent? The class fell silent. A few students shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Professor Chen frowned, but before she could respond, Marcus continued with a theatrical sigh. Maybe we should stick to markets where communication won't be such a barrier. Something inside me snapped. Not into anger. I'd learned long ago that anger was a luxury I couldn't afford. Instead, it snapped into crystal clear determination. That night, I made a decision that would change everything. I would not just succeed despite Marcus Hartwell, I would succeed because of him. He had inadvertently given me the greatest gift possible, a clear picture of everything I was determined not to become. I threw myself into my studies with renewed intensity. While Marcus was at fraternity parties, I was in the library until closing time. While he was networking at expensive restaurants, I couldn't afford. I was building relationships with professors and guest speakers, asking thoughtful questions and offering unique perspectives that only someone with my background could provide. I joined the case competition team despite knowing I would be the only international student. During our first practice session, when I presented my analysis of a supply chain optimization problem, the room fell silent. But this time, it wasn't because of my accent, it was because my solution was brilliant. How did you see that angle? Asked Sarah, our team captain. In India, we face these constraints daily, I explained. Sometimes limitations force innovation. Marcus wasn't on the team. Apparently, he was too busy with his family's business commitments. But word of our practice sessions spread, and I began to notice something shifting in how my classmates interacted with me. They started seeking my opinion, especially on anything related to emerging markets or operational efficiency. The breakthrough came during spring semester. Hartwell Industries was facing a crisis, their manufacturing costs were spiraling out of control, and their attempts to expand into Asian markets had failed spectacularly. During a guest lecture, Marcus's father, Robert Hartwell, presented the company's challenges as a case study. Now, we've tried everything. The elder Hartwell admitted his frustration evident. Our consultants keep recommending the same strategies that worked in Europe, but Asia is different. I saw my opportunity. During the Q&A session, I raised my hand. Mr. Hartwell, have you considered that your approach might be fundamentally misaligned with Asian business culture? Robert's eyebrows rose. How so? I stood up, feeling every eye in the room on me, including Marcus's burning stare. Your company enters markets with predetermined solutions, expecting local adaptation. But in Asia, particularly in India and Southeast Asia, successful partnerships require co-creation from the ground up. You need local partners who aren't just distributors, they need to be collaborators in product development. That sounds expensive and time-consuming, Robert replied. More expensive than your current failure rate, I asked gently. From what you've presented, your company has invested over $50 million in Asian expansion with minimal returns. A collaborative approach might require more patience, but it would cost a fraction of your current losses. The room was dead silent. Marcus looked like he wanted to disappear into his chair. Robert Hartwell studied me with new interest. You seem to know quite a bit about this. I've lived it, I replied simply, and I've seen which approaches work and which ones fail. After class, Robert Hartwell approached me directly. I'd like to continue this conversation. Would you be available for dinner this week? Marcus appeared at his father's elbow, face flushed. Dad, I think it's an excellent idea. His father cut him off, eyes never leaving mine. Marcus has told me so much about his classmates. I caught the look that passed between them and realized that Marcus had indeed mentioned me to his father, though probably not in the way he intended. That dinner changed everything. Robert Hartwell was nothing like his son. He was sharp, experienced, and humble enough to recognize when someone had insights he needed. We talked for 3 hours about Asian markets, cultural nuances, and business strategies. By dessert, he had offered me a summer internship. I want you to lead a small team to develop our India market entry strategy, he said. If it works, there could be a permanent position waiting after graduation. I accepted immediately. The internship was everything I had hoped for and more. I assembled a diverse team combining local market knowledge with operational expertise. We spent the summer developing a comprehensive strategy that prioritized relationship building and cultural adaptation over quick profits. Marcus was also interning at the company that summer in a different division, thankfully, but I could feel his resentment growing as word of my project's progress spread through the company. His father started mentioning my work in board meetings, praising the fresh perspective and innovative approach. The real test came in August, when we presented our strategy to the board of directors. I had prepared for weeks, anticipating every question and challenge. My team had developed detailed financial projections, risk assessments, and implementation timelines. As I stood before the board, I felt the weight of every moment that had led to this point. Every mocking comment, every dismissive glance, every time someone had made me feel small because of where I came from or how I spoke. Ladies and gentlemen, I began, my accent clear and confident. I'm here to present a strategy that will not only establish Hartwell Industries in the Indian market, but position the company for sustainable growth across all of Asia. For the next hour, I presented our comprehensive plan. I spoke about market segmentation partnership strategies, manufacturing optimization, and cultural integration. The board asked tough questions, and I answered each one with data insight and the kind of deep understanding that only comes from lived experience. When I finished, the room was silent for a long moment. Then Robert Hartwell began to clap, followed by the rest of the board. Exceptional work, said Margaret Foster, the lead independent director. This is the most thorough and practical market entry strategy I've seen in 30 years of consulting. The board approved the plan unanimously and allocated $40 million for its implementation. After the meeting, Robert pulled me aside. Arjun, I have a proposition for you. I want you to head up our new Asia-Pacific division. The position comes with a substantial salary equity participation and the authority to build your own team. I was stunned. Mr. Hartwell, I haven't even graduated yet. You can finish your MBA part-time, he said. We'll work around your class schedule, but I don't want to lose you to a competitor. That's when Marcus appeared, his face pale with shock. Dad, what's going on? Your classmate is joining the company as Vice President of Asia Pacific Operations," Robert announced proudly. Marcus stared at me, then at his father, processing the implications. As Vice President, I would outrank him in the company hierarchy. The kid who had mocked my accent would now report to the organizational structure I helped design. "But Dad," Marcus stammered, after graduation, I was supposed to." "But you were supposed to prove yourself," Robert said firmly. "Arjun has done that. You haven't." The next few months were a whirlwind. I completed my MBA while simultaneously launching Hartwell's Asian operations. The India project exceeded all projections, generating $15 million in revenue in the first 6 months alone. Success led to expansion opportunities in Thailand, Vietnam, and Indonesia. My team grew from 3 people to over 50. We opened offices in Mumbai, Bangkok, and Jakarta. Industry publications started featuring articles about Hartwell's innovative approach to emerging markets, often quoting me as the architect of their strategy. Marcus struggled to find his place in the new organizational structure. His father, impressed by my results, had restructured the company to emphasize merit over legacy. Marcus found himself in a junior marketing role, working on campaigns for products developed by teams I supervised. The moment I had been unconsciously waiting for came on a Tuesday morning in March, almost exactly 2 years after that first encounter in the coffee shop. Marcus knocked on my office door, a spacious corner office with a view of Boston Harbor. "Come in," I called out, not looking up from the quarterly reports I was reviewing. He entered hesitantly, carrying a stack of marketing proposals. "Arjun, I have the campaign concepts for the new Delhi product line." I looked up, then seeing him clearly for perhaps the first time. The arrogance was gone, replaced by uncertainty. The easy confidence that came from inherited privilege had been shaken by the reality of actual performance expectations. "Have a seat," I said, gesturing to the chair across from my desk. He sat down, fidgeting with the papers. "The creative team has developed 3 concepts. They're all focused on premium positioning, emphasizing quality and reliability." I reviewed the proposals carefully. They were competent but uninspired, exactly the kind of generic approach that had led to Hartwell's previous failures in Asian markets. "These are well-executed," I said diplomatically, "but they miss the mark for Indian consumers." Marcus's jaw tightened slightly. "How so?" "Premium positioning works, but not in isolation. Indian consumers are sophisticated, they want quality, but they also want to feel understood. These campaigns could be for any market. There's nothing that speaks to Indian values, aspirations, or cultural context." I pulled out a folder from my desk drawer. I had our Mumbai team develop some alternative concepts. Take a look. As Marcus reviewed the materials, I watched his expression change. The campaigns our Indian team had created told stories of family tradition and progress. They connected our products to real life rather than abstract concepts of luxury. "These are really good," he admitted quietly. "They should be. They were created by people who understand the market intimately." We sat in silence for a moment. Then Marcus looked up at me with an expression I'd never seen from him before, genuine curiosity. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "Of course." "How do you do it? How do you make it look so easy?" I leaned back in my chair, considering my answer. "It's not easy, Marcus. It never has been. But I learned early that success isn't about fitting in, it's about bringing unique value. I used to think—" He paused, looking embarrassed. "I used to think that confidence came from belonging, from being part of the right group, going to the right schools, having the right background. And now I realize that real confidence comes from competence, from actually knowing what you're talking about." I nodded. "Your father built this company from nothing. He didn't have advantages, he created them. That's what you need to do too." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "I owe you an apology. For the coffee shop, for the classroom comments, for everything. I was an ass." "Yes, you were," I agreed, but without malice. "But that was then. What matters is what you do now." "I want to learn," he said. "I want to actually contribute something meaningful to this company, instead of just coasting on my name." Over the following months, something unexpected happened. Marcus began to change. He started asking questions instead of making assumptions. He spent time with our international teams, learning about different markets and cultures. He even took Mandarin lessons to better communicate with our Chinese partners. Slowly, grudgingly, I began to respect his effort. It couldn't have been easy for someone who had always relied on inherited advantages to suddenly focus on earning them. Our working relationship evolved from adversarial to professional, to something approaching friendship. Marcus proved to have a sharp, analytical mind when he applied it, and his marketing instincts, once informed by actual market knowledge, became quite valuable. The company continued to thrive. Our Asian operations grew from 15 million to over 200 million in annual revenue. Industry awards followed along with speaking invitations and board positions at other companies. 3 years after that first coffee shop encounter, I found myself delivering the keynote address at Harvard Business School's International Business Conference. The auditorium was packed with students, faculty, and business leaders, or success in global business. I told the audience isn't about eliminating differences, it's about leveraging them. Every accent tells a story of journey. Every perspective shaped by different experiences brings unique value. The moment we stop seeing diversity as something to overcome and start seeing it as competitive advantage, that's when real innovation begins. In the front row, I spotted Marcus, now a successful marketing director running our North American campaigns. He was applauding enthusiastically, and when our eyes met, he smiled a genuine smile, free of the condescension that had once defined our interactions. After my speech, he approached me at the reception. "Great talk," he said. "Though I have to ask, did you plan all this?" Plan what? This whole trajectory. From that day at the coffee shop to now. Did you always know it would work out this way? I laughed. "Marcus, I had no idea it would work out this way. I just knew I wouldn't let anyone else define my limitations." "Well, for what it's worth, I'm glad you didn't. Even though it means you're stuck working for someone with a funny accent." He grinned, "Especially because of that." Turns out that funny accent was connected to one of the sharpest business minds I've ever encountered. As we talked, I reflected on the journey that had brought us both to this point. Marcus had learned that privilege without purpose is hollow. I had learned that success tastes sweetest when it's earned through perseverance rather than revenge. The kid who had once mocked my accent now sought my advice on major decisions. The person who had questioned my right to belong in American business circles now introduced me as a mentor and friend. But perhaps the most satisfying realization was this: I had never needed his approval or anyone else's to validate my worth. The accent he had once mocked as a weakness had actually been my strength all along, a reminder of how far I had traveled, how much I had overcome, and how much I had to offer. Standing in that Harvard reception hall, surrounded by the next generation of business leaders from every corner of the world, I understood that the real victory wasn't becoming Marcus's boss. It was proving that excellence transcends accents, that intelligence speaks every language, and that sometimes the people who underestimate you end up giving you the greatest motivation to succeed. The boy from Mumbai who had once fumbled with American coins at a coffee shop was now shaping global business strategy. And the young man who had once found sport in mocking others had learned to recognize and respect the value of diverse perspectives. In the end, we had both won, though neither of us had expected the victory to look quite like this.